I'm going to read through If by Rudyard Kipling. This is in preparation for your Edexcel IGCSE English Literature exam, paper 1. The title is If, and I'm sure you've noticed as you've read the poem that the poem is really a long list of conditionals, and this is really a man speaking to his son about the consequences of his actions and encouraging him to conduct himself in the right way. So let's get started. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. So straight away, I know I've already kind of mentioned this with the title, we've got the use of anaphora here. So on the first, third and fifth line, we have the repetition of if you can. So the emphasis is on what the son can do, how he can behave and control himself. And also because it's a conditional, because the line begins with if, I think it's a reminder that your conduct has consequences, and this is really fatherly advice on how to conduct oneself. It is in second person. Rudyard Kipling did write this for his son, but you could argue because of the universality of the message, it's all about how to be a good person, and that's not just relevant for Kipling's son, but that's relevant for all of us, and therefore you could read this as the persona speaking to the reader. So it's a poem that you can take something from as well, personally. So what are some of the messages? Asking him if he can keep his head. This is an example of synecdoche, because the head closely relates to calmness and your composure. So he's saying basically, if you can keep calm, even if everyone else around you can't, you should keep your composure. You should keep calm. And then in blue, especially, sorry, I didn't circle this, the use of imperatives help emphasize some things that I think Kipling feels absolutely his son should avoid doing. So the use of imperatives does give emphasis to some types of behavior. Don't deal in lies, don't deal in hatred, but also don't look too good, don't be a show off, and don't talk too wise. So don't come across as arrogant. So it's not just about avoiding types of behavior that are seen as negative, like lies and hating, but also don't be too much of the other either. Don't be kind of a goody two shoes, if you like. So also the use of imperatives creates this didactic tone, and that really means that when you talk to someone with the purpose of teaching them something, and he's obviously trying to teach his son how to conduct himself. So the second stanza, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. First of all, use of dashes here give emphasis, I think, to what is said next. So he's encouraging his son to dream. However, he shouldn't just be a daydreamer. He shouldn't just stop there, or also dream of unrealistic things as well. So I think the dash here is about balance. It's saying you should dream, but not too much. And if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, so again, you need to have time to think. You need to think things through carefully, but it can't be the only thing that you do. You need to also act upon the things that you think about. So I think the dashes add emphasis to this idea that you can't just do one of these things to a dramatic extent. You need to have balance. He also personifies triumph and disaster and calls them two imposters, which I think is quite interesting. First of all, in my opinion, he's writing about triumph and disaster almost as if they are people that will inevitably come into your life. So in other words, life inevitably will have both. You will sometimes triumph and sometimes you won't. But the fact that he calls them both imposters is interesting. I'd be interested to hear your own opinion on this, but I wondered if it suggests that both are short-lived. If they're imposters, it suggests that they kind of come unannounced and they don't stay for long. That's at least what I took from it. So life isn't all going to be triumph and it isn't all going to be disaster. Life is probably going to be normal, maybe even a little boring, and sometimes there will be triumph and sometimes there will be disaster. So the use of imposters there, I think, suggests that you don't necessarily know when these two things will come, and both won't last for long. And so but you still need to meet both success and disaster in the same way. He then gives a metaphor, or uses a metaphor, to talk about how men, or dishonest men, known as knaves, so here we've got knaves, dishonest men, can twist your truth. And I think this is about patience. Saying, sometimes you might, as honest as you try to be, someone might twist what you say. Someone might manipulate what you say and present it as something else, and present you as something else. So there's almost a warning here of bad things that might happen to you, or watch the things you gave your life to. Now, obviously, this isn't about actually literally giving your life to something. So it's a use of hyperbole, but it's about giving all your effort, all your time to something, and then to find it broken. And stoop and build them up with worn out tools. So here's a metaphor again. You're obviously not building up your life with worn out tools, but I think it reminds the reader of human potential, that even when we're absolutely exhausted, as if we are worn out tools, we can still build our lives up. So this really is all about resilience. All these terrible things that can happen, success and disaster, can come into our lives. We may have people that twist the truths that we tell, manipulate our words, mislead people into thinking we are different than we are. When we give great effort to something that doesn't work, we can still build up on that. We can still make things right, even if we are exhausted. So I think this is all about facing disaster with great resilience. Third stanza. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. So I think this stanza is really about taking risks in life. So we have this kind of gambling imagery of if you can make one heap of all your winnings. It's not really talking about money. It's talking about your successes in life. And it's just creating that real clear image of almost like a mountain of money on a table. And pitch and toss was an old game. Again, it's kind of like a gambling game. So we've got this imagery of risk, saying basically life is about taking risks and you shouldn't be afraid to take them. I think the repetition at the beginning of lines 2, 3, and 4 of this stanza encourage persistence, as well as the syndetic listing here as well. And okay, I think this is all about just being persistent and continually, no matter what kind of disaster you face, coming back with all your effort. There's something as well about losing everything and not complaining. So never breathe a word about your loss. This is really encouraging something we call stoicism, which is about in hard times really not complaining, just moving on forward, being very resilient. What's the point in wasting time in complaining about it and just getting on with it? And then we have again another example of synecdoche, heart, nerve, sinew. Is he really talking about forcing these body parts to carry on? Not really. He's talking about effort, and all these things are related to effort. So giving absolutely everything to get back on track. And so hold on when there is nothing in you. So we've got hold on repeated in the penultimate line and the last line as well. And then personification of will, your willpower, as if it can speak, has great strength, and it says to them, hold on. So it's interesting. I haven't really thought about this until I've gone through it just now. But the fact that your willpower, personified here, says to them, hold on, almost suggests that you could inspire others as well, that people could find strength in you. So this isn't about just telling yourself, hold on, but also telling the people around you, inspiring the people around you with your own resilience. Just thought of that just now. It's always nice to talk through these poems. Sometimes you realise things that you didn't initially. Okay, next stanza. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distant run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. So we've got contrasting ideas here, which I think, again, is Kipling encouraging balance in his son's life. So, you shouldn't just be walking around with one type of person. Crowds here really represents the common person, whereas walking with kings is representing the upper class. So you should be able to talk and walk with all types of people, and kind of maintain your own integrity and your own sense of self. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much. So we've got this idea here of neither foes nor friends can hurt you. There's an element here of real self-confidence as well. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, so suggests this kind of self-belief. If you have that strong sense of self and you really can stand by what you believe in, then no one can hurt you. You've always got that to stand by. But what we have here really is contrast. We've got these contrasting ideas, which again, I think encourages Kipling's son to have balance. And then later we've got this hyperbole. Yours is the earth. No, he won't be the king of earth. But what it really means is what great opportunity will be at his fingertips if he is this way. If you behave in this way, if you are patient, if you are resilient, if you are honest, if you maintain composure even when everyone else is losing it, then all opportunities are yours. There's nothing stopping you in this world. And then with the final sentence, this is what we've really come to. This has been a long list of ifs, and we haven't really heard the consequence until these two lines. Finally, we realize if you do all these things, then not only will you have all these opportunities, but also you'll be a man. And this is what it is to be a man. The dashes here give emphasis. So we're saying it's not just about having this opportunity. It's about being a man. That's the more important thing, okay? So the dashes add emphasis to the fact that what's more important is to be a man, as well as the capitalization of man, showing that it's of great importance to become a good man. And the exclamation mark at the end, I think, just gives that great encouragement. It is a very encouraging speech, if you like, that he's giving his son. You might argue it's a lecture. And it's finally revealed that he's speaking to his son, but we may have been able to guess that anyway. Okay, looking at tone, structure, form, let's have a look. So tone, you could argue is advisory. Didactic, as we said, that's really about speaking to someone with the intention of teaching them a lesson. So how a teacher speaks to a student is an example. It's also the optimistic and emphatic. He's trying to emphasize what's important in life. But he's also been really encouraging. If you are a good person, if you do all these things, you will have the world at your feet. You'll have so many opportunities. It's a dramatic monologue. I've written that it's a lecture. It is somewhat lecture-like. However, the concern of saying this is that you might end up saying that he's kind of when you say lecture-like, it might sound like he's complaining, and he's not. He's actually being really encouraging. So be careful if you do say it's lecture-like, because that can have negative connotations, whereas I feel like actually it's a really passionate, encouraging speech. We've used Kipling has used iambic pentameter, so it's well balanced and controlled. If you're unsure of what iambic pentameter is, have a look at some of my other videos or ask your teacher, because I have gone through this quite a bit in other videos. Rhyme scheme is most of the way. Let's have a look at this one first. For the second, third and fourth stanza, it is A, B, C, D, C, D. But for the first stanza, it is A, B, C, B, C. You could argue, is that so? He engages his son or the reader by repeating you 3 times at the beginning of the poem, or is it just a coincidence? But that's one way you could explain it. But one thing to say is that the iambic pentameter and the rhyme scheme has a constancy to it, and there's something about that message, isn't it, about being constant, about being controlled and well balanced, and that is seen in the structure and form of this poem. There is something quite conversational as well, which is the tone is conversational, which is created by the rhyme scheme. Themes, we've got stoicism, which we've talked about, parent-child relationships, advice or guidance, virtuous living, balance, patience and persistence. There's plenty more. If you think about the virtues that he is encouraging in his son, then that's basically a theme.